Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'm sharing my favorite recipe for orange sweet rolls. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. These orange sweet rolls start with my favorite sweet dough base. They are full of fresh orange flavor and a little bit of cinnamon. I think you're going to absolutely love them, so let's go ahead and get started. If you've made any of my sweet dough recipes before, you know that we need to start with a warm liquid that we're going to use to proof our yeast. Today we're using 1 cup of whole milk and a 1/3 cup of water. Now I'm just going to combine these together and take them over to the microwave where I'm going to heat them until I have a temperature that's between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Anytime you're heating liquid in the microwave like this, you want to give it a nice stir before you take the temperature, just to make sure you're not just getting a warm pocket of liquid in there. This is right in our range, so I'm going to add this to a large bowl, and I'm going to add 1 packet or 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Now to help speed that yeast along a little bit, I'm going to add a generous pinch of granulated sugar. This is about 1 teaspoon. Stir everything together so it's nicely combined, and we will let this sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. Once the yeast has proofed, it should have a nice foamy cap on top. If you don't see this foam that I have here, then you're going to need to toss everything out and start over. We're going to be adding 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, and this is where I took my teaspoon out from earlier. I'm just using the remainder. 5 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, 1 large egg plus 1 large egg yolk, 2 teaspoons of table salt. You're going to need approximately 5 cups of flour for this recipe. Now I'm just going to add about 2 cups right now. I'm going to stir everything together until it's pretty well combined. Now for our orange flavor, you're going to want to add about 2 teaspoons to a tablespoon of orange zest. Now I'm just going to grate this directly on here. I find that 1 orange is usually plenty for me, but of course if you have a massive orange, you're not going to need all of that. So you can see when I'm zesting, I'm not going down to that papery white layer, which is called the pith. That's really bitter. It doesn't have a nice orange flavor. So I'm staying pretty close to the surface of the orange. And a little bit deep here, just a little bit is fine, but you don't want to do a lot of that. Now don't toss that orange, we're going to use it for its juice a little bit later on in the recipe. All right, now I'll mix that zest in with my flour, and now I'm going to gradually add more flour until I have a dough that is slightly tacky to the touch, not too sticky. Now I may use all of this flour and then still need more. I may not need to use all of this flour. It really varies depending on your kitchen and humidity and so many different factors. Now I'm making today's dough recipe completely by hand, but you can of course use your stand mixer. So my dough is getting nice and stiff. If I touch it, you can see that the dough doesn't come off on my hands. It's just a little bit tacky. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer this to a clean, lightly floured surface. And I'm just going to knead this until it's smooth and elastic. And if I notice that my dough is sticking to the surface, I'm just gonna add a little bit more flour. Usually takes about 5 minutes of kneading until I have a dough that is the consistency I'm looking for. This is beautiful, smooth, and elastic, so I'm going to grab a large mixing bowl, and I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of oil. I'm using vegetable oil, but you could use canola or olive oil. I'll just smear that around with a paper towel so the sides of the bowl are evenly coated. We'll place our dough in here, and you'll just want to turn that so the entire surface of the dough has a really thin layer of oil. Cover this bowl with plastic wrap, and we'll place it in a warm, draft-free place to rise until it's doubled in size. This typically takes me about 1 to 2 hours. Our dough is looking beautiful right now. It's been sitting for a little bit over an hour, so I'm going to set that aside and I want to prepare the filling that I'm using. I'm just going to be combining a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar with 1 1/2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and just a pinch of salt. This is just an 1/8 teaspoon for a little extra flavor. If you want to experiment, you could add a pinch of cloves. That adds a nice fresh flavor as well, as long as you like cloves. Now we'll just whisk this together until it's nicely combined, and you're also going to want to have some butter set out as well. You'll need 4 tablespoons of butter, and you want this to be really soft and melty. So we don't need these just yet. You can set those aside. Let's take our dough and go ahead and just punch that down to deflate the air out of it. And let's turn this into a clean, lightly floured surface. And you can use your hands to form this into a rectangle, but I think it's much easier to use a rolling pin. And I'm going to roll this into a 10 by 20 inch rectangle. I'm going to spread my softened butter over the surface of this and just spread that butter evenly over the dough. I think you can tell here I'm leaving a little bit of a perimeter around the edge of the dough. I leave about 1/4 of an inch around the edges. Sprinkle that cinnamon sugar mixture over top, and I'm just gonna use my hands to just evenly distribute that. Okay, so to make your orange rolls, we're just going to start with one of the long ends of our dough and just tightly roll this up into a nice log. I like to gently pinch the seams together just using my fingers. And use a sharp knife to cut this into 12 even-sized pieces. Now, generally I like to just gently saw through the dough to keep it nice and round. You can just press right down though if you prefer, if you don't feel like taking the time to be careful. The dough works pretty well to just reform into a nice round roll, even if you smash it a little. I'm going to be baking these in a 13 by 9 inch baking dish, but I'm going to very generously grease this with about 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now arrange these into your baking pan, but leave a little bit of space around them because they're going to rise for another 30 minutes and they're going to grow and expand and they'll fill those gaps. So we'll cover these with a clean towel and let them sit for about another 30 minutes or until, like I said, they've filled those gaps between the rolls. While the dough is rising, you'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes, so let's take a look at our rolls. And these are looking perfect. So we'll pop them into our oven and they're going to need to bake for about 25 minutes. Now to tell if the rolls are finished baking, I just like to use a knife and just kind of look in the center, pry apart 2 of the rolls, take a look. If it's really gooey, obviously it needs a little bit more time. If the knife's coming out clean, you're not seeing a lot of really sticky gooey dough, you're golden. So while these cool, I'm just going to set them aside and I'm going to prepare my glaze. I like to apply this while the rolls are still hot, so we want to make this right now. Combine 1.5 cups of powdered sugar with 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm using unsalted, but salted would be fine. And whisk these together. Now, as you can see, this is way too stiff. You don't have enough liquid to make a nice smooth glaze. So at this point, we'll grab our orange from earlier and we are going to squeeze the juice out of that. I find I normally need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of orange juice to get a nice glaze consistency. Now I've added some of the juice. I'm just going to whisk this until it's smooth. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. It's a little bit stiff, but I'm going to use my knife to spread it over the rolls and they're warm, so it's going to melt it beautifully. All right, these are still warm, but that's the best time to enjoy them, so let's go ahead and grab one. And that is how you make beautiful, pillowy soft, fresh orange sweet rolls. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you try this one out, please let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I was just gonna dive into this head first, but Zach said I need to use a fork. Oh, it's still warm. So good.